In a world where heaven and hell are at war, the story follows the fate of Amitiel, an archangel who was once a divine warrior but is now trapped in a human body and forced into prostitution in the decaying world of purgatory. When her fellow angel discovers her beaten and drugged in a motel room, it becomes clear how far hell's influence extends. It all started with a revelation about how heaven and hell have fought over purgatory and the souls trapped within it. Each side has sent 7 warriors, which includes archangels from heaven and fallen angels from hell. In order to enter purgatory, they must take on human form. Thus, Gabriel, who's the final one of the 7 archangels, descends into purgatory, where he discovers that hell has already taken control, transforming the realm into a dark, seedy city. He initially struggles to adapt to his human body, but soon gathers himself and embarks on his journey. The scene then cuts to an underground lair where several fallen angels are gathered, including Asmodeus, Balan, and Baliel, along with their leader, Samael. He's giving them a speech, but Baliel doesn't pay attention and even dares to disrespect him. Enraged, Samael swiftly snaps Baliel's neck, killing him on the spot and reducing the number of fallen angels from 7 to 6. Elsewhere, Gabriel arrives at the apartment of the Archangel Michael, who was very close to him, like a brother. But he finds the place abandoned, and on the table, he discovers a handwritten note left behind by Michael. The note explains that he had failed his assigned task, just like all 5 archangels who came before him. The enemy he faced was far more powerful than expected, and it is nearly impossible to remain pure in purgatory. The message devastates Gabriel, but he remains determined to set things right and leaves the apartment with 2 firearms that Michael left behind. Later, as Gabriel walks through the streets, he suddenly receives a vision or message about his missing comrade, Uriel. The vision reveals a possible location where Uriel might be found. At the same time, Samael also senses his presence and becomes immediately alarmed. He therefore decides to send one of the fallen angels, Moloch, to stop Gabriel from coming after them. It doesn't take long for Moloch to find Gabriel and launch a surprise attack. The two engage in an intense struggle, but in the end, Gabriel manages to defeat the fallen angel and kills him using his firearm. Meanwhile, Gabriel follows his vision of Uriel and soon comes across an old, abandoned bus. He knocks on the door, and a homeless man slightly opens it, asking what he wants. Gabriel says he's looking for Uriel, but the man responds that Uriel isn't there and firmly tells Gabriel to leave. Regardless, the archangel forces his way inside and points a gun at the man, demanding to know Uriel's whereabouts. But the man calmly reveals that he knows an archangel wouldn't harm an innocent civilian. Next, the homeless man finally reveals that he is Uriel, whom Gabriel has been desperately looking for. He explains that when the archangels enter purgatory, they assume human forms and become susceptible to human desires, which slowly drain their strength. Uriel goes on to explain that the enemy they faced was far too powerful, and that even the strongest archangel, Michael, was powerless against him. He warns Gabriel that if they die in purgatory, they will vanish completely and lose their souls. However, Gabriel refuses to give up so easily and suddenly stabs Uriel without warning. Uriel collapses to the ground, bleeding, as Gabriel apologizes and urges him to use his healing power. Uriel is hesitant at first, but realizing he may die, he finally uses his power for the first time in years and heals himself. Elsewhere in the city, Samael confronts one of his comrades, Ahriman, informing him that the angelic presence they've detected is none other than Gabriel. Samael insists they stick to the plan and wait for Gabriel to succumb to the temptations that will weaken him. However, Ahriman doesn't want to wait that long and suggests they should attack him immediately. However, Samael firmly states that, as their leader, he will have the final say in what they do. Meanwhile, Gabriel asks Uriel about the other angels, and the latter reveals that he's heard rumors of another archangel, Raphael, who is still alive. There's also a female archangel, Amitiel, who lost her wings and became mortal. Samael then forced her to work as a prostitute, and she is now only known as Jade. Upon hearing this, Gabriel asks where she is, and Uriel gives him the address of a brothel. He warns Gabriel not to go, insisting that Amitiel has changed, but Gabriel refuses to abandon his kin and sets out. Shortly after, he arrives at a brothel, and then asks for Jade with the receptionist. But the receptionist tells him that she is away on a private call with some customers. Gabriel asks for the address, but the receptionist refuses to give it, saying they can't share such information. Gabriel agrees, and then he touches the receptionist's hand, gaining access to her memories and determining Amitiel's location. While there, Gabriel is approached by the fallen angel Asmodeus, who is also the brothel's owner. Asmodeus quickly realizes who he is but keeps his composure, engaging in casual conversation with the archangel and even offering him a discount on the services. Not far away, we see Amitiel in a motel room, high on drugs and passed out on the bed. She awakens when two clients enter the room, but one of them turns out to be the fallen angel, Balan. Amitiel realizes they have no intention of following the rules and are here to harm her. Balan then begins to violently beat her and decides they will assault her one by one. But before they can do that, Gabriel arrives in time to save her. He then engages in an intense fight with the two men and eventually manages to kill them. Following this, Gabriel approaches Amitiel and feels deeply sorry for her condition. He helps clean her up and uses his angelic power to purge all the toxic substances and drugs from her body. Amitiel then says she needs to go back to work, but he stops her, telling her she doesn't have to live that way anymore. Gabriel tries to convince her that there's still hope, but Amitiel reveals that Samael is more powerful than all the archangels combined and insists the war is already lost. The scene then cuts to Samael, who is with another fallen angel, Lilith, as they discuss Gabriel's arrival. Lilith is visibly furious, accusing Samael of wasting time instead of attacking the archangel immediately. But Samael insists that his plan is to eliminate the remaining archangels first, which will weaken Gabriel, and then they'll strike him. Lilith still disagrees, so Samael grabs her by the neck and warns her that if she ever questions his decisions again, he won't hesitate to rip out her tongue. In the meantime, Gabriel feels very hungry, so Amitiel decides to take him to a nearby soup kitchen for the homeless people. The two sit down to eat, where Gabriel becomes suspicious of the server and finds him strangely familiar. He asks Amitiel about the man, and she reveals that he is Ithuriel, another archangel who surrendered to fear. She explains that when Ithuriel learned what had happened to her, he chose exile over confrontation. Upon hearing this, a furious Gabriel storms over to Ithuriel and scolds him for abandoning their cause, reminding him of the oath they all swore. Ithuriel breaks down in tears, saying he's doing the best he can and is trying to help the people in his own way. He admits that he doesn't have Gabriel's strength and has become weak over time. In the end, Gabriel apologizes for his behavior and embraces his old friend, telling him it's good to see him again. Next, Ithuriel reveals that another archangel, Raphael, is also here, so Gabriel says he wants to meet him. Ithuriel then leads him down into a network of abandoned tunnels beneath the soup kitchen. Deep in the tunnels, they find Archangel Raphael, gravely injured and weakened, being cared for by a woman. Gabriel then asks to be alone with Raphael and tells the others to leave them alone. Afterward, Gabriel approaches the injured Raphael and asks what happened to him. Raphael weakly reveals that Samael shot him, and he can't heal himself because he has lost most of his angelic powers. With this, Gabriel uses his powers and heals Raphael, returning him to his normal state. However, this makes Raphael very angry, and he scolds Gabriel for not listening to him. He reveals that by healing him, Gabriel has exhausted half of his own strength, and even worse, exposed their presence to the fallen angels. Gabriel insists that his strength will return, but Raphael reveals it won't, since the longer they stay down here, the weaker their connection to the source becomes. Despite everything, Gabriel doesn't regret his decision and asks Raphael for help, believing they still have a chance to defeat Samael. He plans to take out the other fallen angels one by one and weaken Samael before confronting him directly. He thus decides to start with Asmodeus first, who is the owner of the brothel we saw earlier. Elsewhere, we see Samael and Asmodeus chatting, and the latter reveals that Amitiel is missing, while the fallen angel they sent to harass her is dead. However, neither of them seems particularly worried, and Samael remarks that Gabriel did exactly what they had hoped he would. The scene then returns to Gabriel, who wonders what happened to Michael. Raphael responds that, although none of them actually saw him, they could feel his presence when they first arrived in Purgatory. But over time, his signal grew weaker and weaker until it eventually faded away. Raphael states that he felt a small surge the night Michael fought Samael, but since then, nothing. He tries to comfort a distraught Gabriel, knowing how much Michael meant to him since the two were very close. Gabriel wonders if Samael is really that powerful and why he hasn't attacked him yet. But Raphael has no answer to this. Following this, Gabriel heads back out into the city to find the fallen angels and eliminate them. He soon arrives at a warehouse where Ahriman is overseeing his men as they package illegal drugs for distribution. Ahriman quickly senses Gabriel's presence, arms himself with a gun, and orders his men to prepare before shutting off the lights. Moments later, Gabriel appears, and an intense gunfight breaks out between him and the goons. When the lights come back on, Ahriman is horrified to see all of his men dead and Gabriel still standing. The two then have an intense one-on-one fight, but Ahriman turns out to be no match against Gabriel, who eventually shoots the fallen angel in the head and kills him. Elsewhere, we see Samael with Lilith and Asmodeus, and he soon senses that Ahriman is no longer alive, which frustrates him. Lilith is furious and says that Gabriel is stronger than they thought, so they must take action. Thus, Samael gives them the addresses of the other archangels and asks his comrades to kill them, after which they will take out Gabriel last. Lilith and Asmodeus seem annoyed by him and wonder why he is hesitant to attack Gabriel directly. On the other hand, Gabriel returns to Michael's old apartment, where he lies down on the bed and sketches a picture of Amitiel before soon falling asleep. Not long after, he wakes up when Amitiel unexpectedly arrives to see him. She is surprised to see the sketch he made of her and claims she doesn't look like that, but he insists that she does to him. Amitiel seems touched, and they lie down together in bed before soon going to sleep. In another scene, a drunk Uriel steps out of his bus to relieve himself. At the same time, an old man arrives at the soup kitchen and quietly sits down to eat. After finishing, the man leaves but ends up leaving behind his bag. Ithuriel notices it and quickly goes to check what it is. To his horror, the bag contains a bomb, which detonates seconds later, destroying the entire soup kitchen and killing Ithuriel along with everyone inside. We then see that the old man was actually Asmodeus in disguise and was carrying out Samael's orders to bomb the place. At the same time, Uriel is also brutally shot multiple times by someone from a distance. The scene then cuts to Raphael and his caretaker, who feel the shock of the bombing but remain safe for now, as they are in the tunnel. The two then frantically try to escape before the fallen angels arrive to kill them. Unfortunately, they don't get far, as Samael soon shows up and murders them both. We then return to a wounded Uriel, who is approached by Lilith and fatally shot one last time, sealing his death. Moments later, Gabriel is jolted awake from his sleep and immediately senses the death of 3 angels. Amitiel asks him what happened, but he's devastated and frantically blames himself for the deaths. He then rushes to the soup kitchen and breaks down upon seeing numerous bodies scattered around from the explosion. As he touches one of the victims, who is on the verge of death, he sees a memory of Asmodeus, confirming that he was responsible for the attack. This revelation fills Gabriel with rage, causing his eyes to change from bright blue to fiery brown, the same color as the fallen angels. Fueled by rage, Gabriel heads to the brothel, where he points a gun at the receptionist and demands to know where Asmodeus is. She then nervously states he is on the top floor, so Gabriel heads there and kills many goons on the way who try to attack him. In the end, Gabriel eventually finds Asmodeus, who is holding a woman hostage as a shield. Turns out, Asmodeus was in the middle of a gruesome act. He has been surgically altering the captive woman's face to look like his own, to satisfy his vanity. Asmodeus then states how it was Gabriel's own fault that his friends are dead, because he led the fallen angels to them. Upon hearing this, an angry Gabriel takes a well-aimed shot and hits Asmodeus in his left eye. But this isn't enough to kill the evil man, and after this, a hand-to-hand combat ensues between the two of them. But in the end, our hero eventually manages to overpower the psycho, and then repeatedly hits him with his gun until Asmodeus is eventually dead. In the aftermath, Gabriel approaches the poor woman whom Asmodeus was torturing and heals her using his powers. The woman's face is restored to its original appearance, and she seems relieved to be safe. Gabriel soon returns to Amitiel, who notices his distress and comforts him. The two then kiss each other and end up making love that night. Afterward, Gabriel hugs her and informs her that after tonight, he will never see her again. The scene then cuts to a nightclub, where Lilith senses the death of Asmodeus and is furious. She scolds Samael and blames his incompetence for the deaths of the fallen angels, but Samael argues that Asmodeus died because he was weak, just like the others. However, Lilith feels disgusted that she ever trusted him and proceeds to leave the nightclub. But as she passes through the dance floor, Gabriel suddenly appears and injects her with multiple doses of drugs until she finally collapses, dead. Following this, Gabriel searches every room and corner of the nightclub to look for Samael, but he is nowhere to be seen. Then, all of a sudden, Samael attacks him from behind and manages to disarm him easily. The two then get into an intense fight, which ends with Gabriel being knocked unconscious by Samael. Shortly after, when Gabriel wakes up, he continues looking for Samael and finds him on the rooftop of the building. He points a gun at him, but surprisingly, Samael refuses to fight and just stands there, asking Gabriel to shoot him. He then begins rambling about power and free will, saying he hates being an angel bound to serve others. He claims that in purgatory he has found the freedom to make his own choices. He also reveals how he did all of this for Gabriel and even protected him when other fallen angels tried to kill him. With this, Samael asks Gabriel to abandon his cause and invites him to join him instead, which our hero obviously refuses. Samael reveals how he was the one who taught Gabriel all his knowledge and that he loves him like a brother. At this moment, Gabriel has a shocking realization, and it turns out that Samael is actually his old friend, Michael. Michael then explains how he had killed the real Samael and taken his place. He thus invites Gabriel to defy God's commands, live freely without ties, and rule purgatory together. Regardless, Gabriel refuses his offer, and then the two turn to fight once again. Michael, drawing on his remaining strength, beats Gabriel and finally impales him in the chest with a metal pipe. An injured Gabriel then tells Michael that he loves him but despises who he has become. The The two of them hug, and Gabriel pushes the metal pipe into Michael's body, causing the two men to collapse to the ground. It appears that they will both die, but at the last minute, Michael uses his powers to heal Gabriel's fatal wound, claiming it is his final gift. He then passes away, after which a bright light returns to the city, and Purgatory begins to be cleansed of darkness, indicating that Gabriel has won their battle. In the aftermath, Gabriel is distraught at the loss of his friend, so he shouts up to God and asks if this is what he truly wanted. He no longer believes he deserves to return after everything he's been through, and decides to remain in purgatory as a human. Gabriel then walks to the edge of the rooftop and jumps from the building as the movie comes to an end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more of this series.